Hey everybody, my name is LaPrecious and welcome to my channel. Let's talk with LaPrecious. So today I'm going to be doing a review on Lifetime Salt and Pepper movie. So when the Salt and Pepper movie first was presented to us as a new movie that's coming out, this movie had already been in the works since the Clark Sisters movie had came out. And when the Clark Sisters movie came out, I remember it was so good. I loved it. I should have did a review on it. I'm thinking about doing a review on it now, even though it is 2 years old. But yeah, the Clark Sisters movie was the best movie that Lifetime had put out at the time. So I remember at the time when the Salt and Pepper movie was coming out, there wasn't, I mean, to me, it seemed like people really didn't care too much about the movie. The only issue that I did see that people had with the movie was the fact that the actresses they chose to play Salt and Pepper and Spinderella were light skinned. I remember people saying, "Oh, Pep's too light, Spinderella's too light." They wasn't really that light. They was a little darker than that, whatever. And I'm kind of really getting sick and tired of the whole colorism issue, especially with black people, but not so much as with black people with the industry as well. I personally think that the actresses that they chose to play Salt and Pepper in the movie, I feel like they depicted Salt and Pepper and even Spinderella in a good light. I didn't see anything inaccurate. I didn't see anything wrong. And as far as these appearances, I'm like, to an extent, I do believe that a lot of biopics need to do a better job of picking actors and actresses that actually look like the people they're depicting instead of just randomly picking people out of a lineup to play this role because they have some type of likability to them. And I don't know what it is, but it just seems like some of the production and even the creative directing and the executive producing of some of these biopics and TV shows is really sloppy, especially when it comes to the black productions. Because I'm like, come on now, we done had biopics come out about the Dream Girls, um, the Five Heartbeats, Tina Turner, what's some other ones? New Edition, Bobby Brown. And I mean, the list just goes on and on. And I'm like, we've had all these good biopics, so why are y'all slacking and slopping off now? Like TLC, VH1's TLC's biopic was the best one by far in a really long time, and that really offset the continuation of biopic movies because it was so good. Because a lot of people, even before TLC's biopic dropped, they didn't think it was going to be good because Little Mama was playing Left Eye. You know, Little Mama had took a lot of L's publicly, mainly because of her, music antics and stuff like that. But she proved everybody wrong by playing Left Eye. Because she played Left Eye so good in the TLC movie, people almost thought it was really Left Eye. So moving along from the biopic issues, now we're moving along to the Salt and Pepper biopic. So back to what I was saying about the colorism thing. The actresses that they chose to play Salt and Pepper, I felt like were good depictions of Salt and Pepper. I didn't see them being too light or too brown or whatever, because I mean, Salt is light, and that's probably why they did call her Salt, because she's light skinned. Pep is a brown skinned Jamaican woman. I mean, the color of the actress that they chose to play Pep, her color really wasn't too off from what Pep is. And I personally think they kind of darkened her skin just a little bit, or they may have tanned her skin a little bit because the actress, I actually saw her play in another movie called, I think it's called The Preacher's Son. I think it's a Carl Weber movie, and I remember Christian Keys played in it. He was the main character, and Drew Sidora played his girlfriend that was a stripper. And then come to find out at the end of the movie they were brother and sister because the dad had accidentally slept, or he might have slept with her mama a long, long time ago, back when he was addicted to drugs and forgot. And when they had that big old scene at the church, at the end he found out that that was his sister, and it really they almost got married. That's what happened. They almost got married, and then this whole big scandal or whatever had came out, and Christian Key's character found out that Drew Sidora's character was his sister. But Drew Sidora had a best friend that worked with her at the strip club, and that was the same actress that played Pep in the Salt and Pepper movie. So that's the correlation that I got from those two movies. Now, moving along to the Salt and Pepper movie. So, in the beginning of the movie, I felt like it was a good rollout because it opened up with Salt and Pep meeting each other at Queen's at the Queens Community College in Queens, New York. The college is a real college in Queens, New York. And I do remember from reading the little bio that I did on Salt and Pepper that they really did meet in college. So I felt like the most important thing that they paid attention to with this movie was the accuracy of how Salt and Pepper met, how they came to be known as Salt and Pepper, their humble beginnings, where they were from, pretty much their background story. So I felt like this movie did do a good depiction of accuracy, and I like the fact how it had a beginning and an end. Even though it was a little lengthy, because this movie was 3 hours long. I didn't realize it was 3 hours long until I recorded it and saw how the length of the biopic. So I'm like, this is a long biopic. Because the other biopics I've seen, I don't think have been that long. Now the Jackson 5 one, they made that a miniseries. Because if you put all of them little episodes together, that thing is about 6 hours long. So I digress. But the beginning of it, it started out really well. They met in college, they got to know each other, blah, blah, blah. So that was that. Then we move along to Salt and her boyfriend. One thing I've noticed about a lot of the R&B groups or the female rap groups or even with female rappers, there was always a man in the center of their creation or their blossoming as a group or as an artist and whatnot. I don't know why that is, but to me, in another depiction that I saw from this movie, it kind of had that sparkle effect. And when I say sparkle, I'm talking about the Sparkle movie, and I'm not talking about the Sparkle movie with Jordan Sparks in it, not the one with Whitney Houston in it, which was the reboot of Sparkle. I'm talking about Sparkle as in, well, no, there was a there. Sparkle in the new Sparkle movie with Whitney Houston did have a boyfriend that was, getting her in the industry. But I'm gonna be honest with y'all. When it comes to Sparkle, Irene Cara Sparkle is my favorite by far. I love her. I always see her as the original Sparkle. The Jordan Spark one, it was okay, but I like Irene Cara's version better. So it gave me that Sparkle effect of how when Sparkle was coming up, she had the boyfriend that knew people in the industry or was really good with music and gaining those connections. And he pretty much got her started on her way as well as her sisters. And I felt like with Salt's boyfriend at the time was able to kind of get that mellowing and that developing of music with Salt, and then Pep came along, and and that's how they created Salt and Pepper. Now the thing that I didn't like about Salt's boyfriend was that he was one of those like stereotypical male chauvinistic type of boyfriends that was in the industry. And I've noticed this with a lot of like 80s and 90s groups, female groups especially, that had those boyfriends that was in the industry. Because you even see the correlation between Austin and Chili from TLC, because they had the same thing going on with them. Because Chili and Austin were dating, Austin was like their producer, and Chili was in love with him and whatnot, and they had a son and whatever. But he dogged Chili out. He was bringing women into the studio, and every time you turn around, he would be leaving out with another woman before Chili came in, and T-Boz knew it, and Pep knew it too with Salt. So I don't know why it is. It's like at the same breath, the men did make the way for these women to become what they were, but they were really like no good men when when it's all said and done. But I don't know why that is. It just seems like a lot of times no good people seem to have such good characteristics about him, and that's why we love him. But at the same time, they're just not good for us. So I felt like it worked, even though it hurt the women in the process, because they did make a lot of good music, and they wouldn't have had careers if it was for these men. So it's a pro and a con to everything, I guess. So moving along from that, I just didn't like her boyfriend. I mean, he did help them out as a group in the beginning, but the way he kept comparing Pep to Cheryl, and it was like, he was like, you need to stay on beat. You're Jamaican, right? So that rhythm and stuff needs to flow through you and whatever. So you need to get it together, blah blah blah. I'm like, and see, and this is around the time when beatboxing, because we're when we talk about Salt and Pepper, even though this is before my time, because I'm a '90s baby, but I still know a lot about music and hip hop. Around this time with the '80s and sliding into like the early '90s, you was dealing with the beatboxing and the breakdancing and the pretty much scatting and rapping as if you were a talking dictionary. This was when dialect and vocabulary and a play on words was really big with hip hop, before it became overly violent and sexualized and drug filled, as we know in rap today, especially with the gangster rap that originally started in like the early 90s. And so, Pep was pretty much putting her own little spin on the rap, and he was like, you need to rap on beat and pretty much get like Cheryl and stuff like that. And she's like, well, I'm not Cheryl, I'm my own person. So eventually, even though he didn't like the way Pep was coming on the raps and stuff like that, she was still able to hold her own. Now, moving along from that, I really like the authenticity of how Salt and Pepper really came up. It's like those humble beginnings because, excuse me, I love seeing with, especially with hip hop, because it's kind of rare to even see it now, where people meet up in high school or meet up in college and they have a dream. And I love how they showed how they used to work for like a call center place with Kid and Play, and how they pretty much, use their money on the side while they was in school and working to pretty much build their dream. Because it's a lot of us that have that same story where, we're young and we got a dream and we got friends and, you're trying to start like a clothing line, trying to start your own little business, a little hustle, or even trying to be, a come up rap artist, a singer, or whatever you want to do. So that's what I did like about the story. It had that innocent, humble beginning where, we're young, we're beautiful, we're talented, and we want the world to see us. And it ended up working out in their favor. Now, moving along from that, you did have, the whole boyfriend, Salt's boyfriend, was pretty much, mixed up with some thugs and whatnot. And I believe that in the Sparkle movie, Sparkle's boyfriend was mixed up with some thugs too, where he was trying to get some money to pretty much, butter their deals and whatnot. And it didn't end up working out, and they almost got killed. And Salt got a face beat off, in order to, get out of that situation. And the thing I like about Pep's character in this movie was that she had common sense. She's like, you know what? I'm not going to stick around for this. I'm not going to stay here. And even before the whole ordeal went down with the thugs that created a fake Salt and Pepper because they couldn't get the money to put on the real Salt and Pepper, the boyfriend came and pretty much blew their cover, and that's why they got beat up anyway. But Pep was like, I'm not going to stay down for this. I'm going to call my sisters. They're going to come and pick me up because this is a whole bunch of mess I don't want to be a part of. So that's what I liked about Pep's character. She was like the common sense friend. Salt was the, oh, he's just playing, or, oh, it's just simple or whatever. And Pep was like, no, this ain't right. He ain't paying us, so I'm not sticking up for this. So I did like that mellowing of the different personalities that they had within the movie. So sliding on from that whole situation with the thugs and whatnot, this is when you see like the beginnings of Salt and Pepper when they went mainstream. And now I want to talk about Spinderella. So with the first Spinderella that they had, she was of course the sweet, young girl that could mix on the tunes and whatnot and was pretty much playing along. Now I'm gonna be honest, in the movie they did give a accurate account of how Salt and Pep felt about those DJs. Because even with the first Spinderella, they wasn't feeling her. Because in the first scene, when they was even practicing with her, they was like, well, what is she doing here? We don't need no DJ. Why we gotta wait on her to come just so we can rehearse and all that kind of stuff? We rap and she's spinning tunes. So the attitude of we're better than you because we're the main act and we're the rappers and you're just the DJ in the back helping us dance and sing and whatnot, that attitude was already there. So everybody's been talking about how Salt and Pepper have been so mean and rude to Spinderella, and they have, because I've seen clips. I remember I saw a Lovely T video about 2 years ago, and it's at the time I didn't watch a lot of these like VH1 TV shows back then because I was interested in other things back then. And Pep and Salt, they was like mean girls to Spinderella. They was downright rude, doggish, all that kind of stuff. But to be honest, in the end, it did come back on Salt and Pepper in some ways. But one thing I want to say is the attitude of not caring about Spinderella and whatnot since the beginning, it was already there. They didn't even like the first Spinderella because they felt like it was Salt and Pep. That's all it needed to be about. They didn't need no DJ Spinderella trying to look cute and pretty in the back, rapping to the beat right along with them, and ad libs on and none of that. They didn't see it for the first Spinderella, so they showed didn't see it for the second one. And even the Salt's boyfriend even cut the girl out when she missed the rehearsal or came really late. He said this is unprofessional. We got business to do. We need to get her off. That's it. And Pep was saying, well, why did she get a phone call, blah, blah, blah. but you dog me out and whatnot. So, the difference of attention and stuff was pretty much there already. And at the rehearsal, he just pretty much told her she was done and she was out. She was fired. And Shirley Pep, they said, well, she's on the album cover, so how are we going to explain this to people? And the boyfriend was like, well, it don't matter. Groups switch up all the time, which is true. So they pretty much moved on and they went to like this little house party that was on the roof somewhere and whatnot, and they met the second Cinderella, which is the one that all of us know due to the tabloids and the scandals and the lawsuits that have been swirling around for the past, 20 years about Cinderella and Salt and Pepper. I did not know Cinderella was that young when she doing Salt and Pepper. She was like 16, 17 years old. So she was like young, coming up in the game. And to me, it appears that she was, really sweet and whatnot when she was with Salt and Pepper. But like I said, in some scenes in the movie, they did show Salt and Pepper, saying we don't need her. Why is she here? And you could even see in some of the scenes where Cinderella was squeezing in and saying, "Well, hey, I'm here, and and I'm Cinderella, and I matter too." So it's like in some of the scenes you can even see where the second Cinderella that we know now was trying to win her spot even back then in the movie. So a lot of people are saying it didn't depict DJ Spinderella in the correct light. I feel like it did, and it showed their attitude towards her. And one thing I did notice, I don't know if y'all picked up on it either, the camera cut Spinderella out. I noticed it when they were showing like the different changing scenes of Salt and Pepper performing at all these different venues in Berlin and Tokyo and all these different cities and different countries. When Salt and Pepper and Spinderella was dancing, they kept the camera on Salt and Pepper, but anytime Spinderella's face was shown, they cut it. And they made sure that her scenes didn't really get seen as much, and that she really wasn't giving that much attention with dancing and singing. So I'm like, even though Spinderella's story wasn't told, Salt and Pepper's, hands and stuff was shown, it was shown. They got exposed because you can even tell, even in the editing and how they did Spinderella's character, the attitude that Salt and Pepper have about Spinderella. So the movie, it shows Salt and Pepper in a very good light, but it also showed how they treated DJ Spinderella too. So I feel like the way that they treated her, it was shown in the movie, even though Salt and Pepper was like, oh, hi, the movie's over now. We're going to do this interview with Lonnie Love and tell you the real story. I'm like, yeah, y'all telling y'all story, but whether y'all want to shut Spinderella out or not, it's still shown in how y'all see her. Even in the movie, we saw that. So moving along from the whole Spinderella jazz and whatnot, let's get to the part where we start to see Salt and Pep's life being played out individually as women, as mothers, and whatnot. Now, from watching Growing Up Hip Hop, I thought that Egypt was Pep's only child until I did see in the credits or whatever. I kind of put two and two in my head that the guy talking from every now and then was her son. He don't really show too much resemblance to Pep. Maybe his daddy, but not so much Pep. I feel like Egypt, she does show more resemblance to of Pep than the son does. So I didn't know that Pep had, a child before she met Tretch from Naughty by Nature by another man. And we did see that where, they was dating and she told him she was pregnant, he didn't really care and they ended up breaking up. So she had her son, and then we did see where they was at a performance or a party, and Tretch had picked up, her son or whatever, and she came over was talking, and that's how their relationship and marriage got started. Then with Salt, I think Salt must have been dealing with some bulimia and whatnot because we did see her throwing up in a lot of the scenes and whatnot, and we did see Salt and how she came to have kids and all this stuff too. And Salt just kept seeming to have like Christian revelations and whatnot in between her being in the group. And then my thing is, it's like, and here's my take on Christian people. I'm going to say it. I don't go to church, and I don't go to church because I have my own personal reasons for not going, and hypocrisy is one of them. And you see it with Salt, like you do with a lot of church people. My thing is with Salt is that if you grew up in the church and you had all of these different revelations, why didn't God fix you about your attitude? and how you was towards Spinderella. Because see, that's the thing about me with Christian people and church people in general. Because salt, it's like you kept pretty much having issues with, the music and the lyrics and stuff. Well, if you had such a big issue with salt and pepper and whatnot, why didn't you just say I want out? You didn't say you wanted out salt and pepper because you needed the money, and you knew that was your only money maker. Because I feel like if you really wanted to be a Christian, then you should have did like Vanity from Vanity Six that used to sing with Prince, and say you want out of the industry altogether and not take no money or no royalties from your career. Because when Vanity from Vanity Six, she cut out all royalties. When she got sick from that kidney failure, where she almost died at, and Vanity Six has now passed away. She actually died, I think, a month before Prince did, which is ironic, and they were the same age. But Vanity Six, when she gave her life to Christ, she cut off all musical ties. She didn't receive no money, no royalties, no checks, no nothing from none of her music from Vanity Six. So I'm like, okay, Saul, if you claim to be such a Christian woman and have issues with the lyrics and stuff, and you kept saying, we're mothers and whatnot, and we need this, why did you get out of the industry? Oh yeah, because you needed the money. And then on top of that, it's like even in the '90s, when Kurt Franklin came out with the hip hop gospel stuff, she was on the song Stone, where she was saying, I like to give thanks to the one who's above, you did all of that and praise him high at the end, but it's like God still didn't fix you about your attitude. And my thing is with Christian people and even with church going people, it's like they pride themselves on being Christians and knowing so much word and knowing so much godliness and stuff like that. It's like they always have a scope and an eye on everybody else but themselves. And I don't know what it is. And from my experience of being in the church, because I used to be heavy in the church, used to actually minister in the church. I don't know what it is. It's like when you read the Bible and get so entrenched in it, you feel like God, even though you're not. And it's kind of weird in a way, too. And I think that's why a lot of church people and Christian people in general seem to have this, pious attitude or self-righteous attitude about themselves, because it's like, oh, I'm a person of the cloth and I'm Christian and I'm godly and whatnot, and I'm better than you if you're not. But at the same time, y'all do a lot of the stuff that y'all judge people for. But you never want to talk about that, but you want to bash somebody else. So I'm like, Pep, Salt, you got issues. I feel like instead of you getting a revelation from God about what you're doing, I think that's kind of you needing to self-reflect and to do some shadow work instead about why you feel so crappy all the time and you keep jumping into the world and jumping into the church back and forth or whatever. But I'm moving on from that. So, after, her revelations and whatnot we do see where it goes from them being in the heights of their careers, because they did have to make a transition from being push it to what a man, what a man, what a man, because they saw how it went from being like the bubble gum, the air beats and whatnot of breakdancing and beatboxing. Now they had to be sexy. They had to work in sex and flirtatious lyrics and whatnot, because at the time you didn't just have Salt and Pepper. You had In Vogue. You had what's the name of that group? Grapevine, the one with Nikki Gilbert in it. You had them. Then you had TLC. Then you had Brandy, Monica, and Aaliyah. You had all of these soulful, sensual, sexy people coming out. And so they had to make that transition in order for them to stay relevant. And it helped them because they were able to have a career really in two different eras of hip hop. You had the beatbox with the 80s, and then you had the soft sexual, New Jack Swing, R&B kind of feel of the 90s. So they were able to transition well and really have a strong force within the hip hop community, because that's why they have been honored and seen as the pioneers of hip hop, because we not only see it with Salt and Pepper, but we saw it with MC Lyte, we saw it with Queen Latifah, and who else was up there? I want to say, I'm not going to say who or how I say, because I know y'all going to eat me up in the comments for not being accurate, but there was a rapper. Tell me in the comments who this rapper was. She used to rap in the 80s, and she was from England, but she was able to rap in a way where she sounded American. A lot of the 80s, beatboxing, soulful, black pride rappers that was rapping and stuff in the beginning, like MC Lyte, Queen Latifah, and Salt and Pepper, they had to make their transition in the 90s to be more soulful, more sensual, and just really more like, cool and whatnot. So they made a successful transition and whatnot. And we did see, now one thing I did see was that Pep, she did downplay that abuse that she experienced from Tretch. Because we all know Tretch beat Pep's behind. He did. And I remember that Pep even tried to write a book, and she maybe released the book and talked about the abuse that Tretch did. And Tretch cussed her out. He even said he was going to sue her for her writing the book. And then, long story short, on Growing Up Hip Hop, they all lovey-dovey, or we're going to be here to support Egypt, that's our baby and whatnot. And I feel like Pep, and this is my thing about karma, because DJ Spinderella, even though she does feel bad about how Salt and Pepper treated her, Salt and Pepper are getting their karma. Because my thing is that Salt and Pepper will never be known for anything else but Salt and Pepper. So they really have to stick to that moniker and that name just to keep money and stuff flowing through. And I mean, it is what it is. And I feel like thanks to this movie, it's really revived their careers and their name. Because let's just be honest, in the hip hop community now, they don't care nothing about a lot of these rappers from the 80s and 90s that made a way for them. They have disrespected everybody from Biggie Smalls, Lil Kim, Foxy Brown, and Tupac, who's known as like the Jesus of hip hop. So I'm like, if they're disrespecting Tupac, what makes y'all think that 40 years from now people gonna know who Salt and Pepper is? I mean, let's just be real. Because even the black community with music is changing, and that's why you do see a lot of white and Asians and Hispanics now rocking Salt and Pepper shirts and MC Hammer shirts and stuff, because it's like this is a part of our culture. This is what we know. And a lot of black people are transitioning from basic, hip hop and R&B beginnings to different genres, and the other races are coming in learning about our culture. So to be honest, Salt and Pepper, I'm like, if y'all don't get outside of the black community and go over to places like Japan and China that love hip hop and R&B music so much to revive y'all's careers like other 90s hip hop and R&B groups have done, y'all not gonna be Salt and Pepper no more. Y'all just gonna be Cheryl and Pep. I don't know Pep's real name, but yeah, y'all just gonna be Cheryl and Pep eventually. So that's that. Now, Cheryl, Salt, to me, I feel like it's really weird with her, because to me, I feel like she tries to come off. Sure, Salt, I'm gonna call her Cheryl. Cheryl, Salt, whatever. They both begin with the S. I feel like with her, she pretty much she comes off as somebody who's very structured, and she's just she comes off as somebody who's always has it together, but I feel like she's hiding a lot of stuff beneath the surface. I really do. I feel like she puts on the front and is not really honest. With Pep, I feel like she's in your face. Because I remember that scene when Spinderella was talking about how if it wasn't for her, she made it. And I'm saying it the way I know she said it, how Spinderella was saying how, well, Salt and Pepper really didn't flourish until I came along. And Pep was like, flourish? She said, we was already flourishing. Because DJ Spinderella tried to make it seem like that wasn't Salt and Pepper until she came on the scene. And I'm going to get to Spinderella a little bit. Y'all may not like my comment about that, but it is what it is. So with Pep, I feel like Pep, she's Pep. She's Spice. That's her. That's who she is. But I really do feel like Pep, karma done ate her up a lot too. I feel like it ate her up in her marriage because, like I said, karma has a funny way of trickling through people's life where they go through skewed life experiences, and it's because of how they treated people. And they may see it as, well, it's my journey or whatever. Nah, God has a funny way, the universe has a funny way of getting people back where they don't know that that's their get back or how they treated, how they done somebody. Because, I mean, Tretch, he abused Pep. And Pep, from watching her on Growing Up Hip Hop, and I can't stand people like this because I had an aunt that was like this, where they know that shit is not sweet, but they act like it is. And they put on this front, oh, hi guys, I'm fine, everything's fine, everything's good. And they have like this real nice, nasty attitude where they don't like dealing with stuff, but they deal with it in their own way. And they know that if you call it out, you're going to be the one that looks like the bad guy and not them. That's Pep's attitude now, because with her daughter, on Growing Up Hip Hop, her daughter acts like a child to me. I just don't get it. And in her weird boyfriend, fiance Sam, whatever he is to her, to me that's just like, to me they come off as John Lennon and Yono Oko. You know, like that weird, like sunflower, like kind of couple where, oh, we're at peace, oh, we love each other, everything's good. But it's it's like the background is just so like, I can't understand this because Sam was a fraud to me. It's like you've been homeless, living out of people's cars, you have kids that you don't take care of. And I felt like he really used Egypt because of who her parents were. And I felt like he made her look stupid and crazy, and she just played along with it. Then they have this cat call where they round up everybody to gang up on somebody, and Pep and Tretch are just so in depth with that. And then Pep is in this whole thing where she's suing her doctor because her butt implants exploded, and I feel like Pep, she really didn't need to do nothing to her body because Pep has the Wendy Williams, Mariah Carey kind of body where they're like apple shaped women that have broad shoulders and like real like toned chest and no hips and no butt and whatnot. They're women, but they just have like a masculine build to themselves. And sometimes when you get surgery like that, when you get implants and stuff put in for somebody that has more of a curvaceous, like pear shape or maybe a triangle shape or whatever, it's not gonna look good on you. Cause Pep to me, I'm like all Pep had to do really was go to the gym. Cause some women, and I'm kind of getting tired of seeing this big booty Judy stuff with these celebrities. Cause the big booty implant stuff is really getting old. Cause I'm like, and I mean to each his own, Cause I would like to have a bigger butt one day, so I'm not mad at them. But to me, it's just a botched surgery conversation and whatnot. It's just really old. I'm like, a lot of women have died, and a lot of women have gone through like body deformations and stuff like that. I'm like, people be on the internet all the time. I'm like, why don't y'all know this stuff already? But you still get it done, you still have money. And then the crazy thing to me is with Pep, you got all this money. Why can't you go to somebody legitimate? Because that's one thing I said about Nicki Minaj too. Because when Nicki Minaj first came out with her butt implants and Kim K did, her butt went from small, big, medium, out of the way, inward. And I'm like, Nikki, you make all this money as a starting artist. Why can't you go to somebody that can get it right the first time, and so your butt can continue to be bigger? Because I mean, Cardi B when she came out, even as a stripper, her butt stayed the same size until she had culture a year later and got it supersized. And it's like y'all got money, got the resources to get it done right the first time, but it's your money. So, anyways, and Pep, I just feel like it's stuff going on with her too. And that's why I said Cinderella really shouldn't feel too bad about how Salt and Pep did her because they getting their karma. Pep is getting it with her, I don't, with the in denialness because she got issues going on too, and with her surgeries with Salt. You could tell Salt just don't know how to be herself because I think Salt came from a family and a background where they wanted her to be perfect. And you could tell even with her boyfriend, she played the sweet little innocent girl that got walked all over and cheated on, and he had a baby on her too, even when she was in the house after they had made all their money and stuff. And I'm gonna tell you one thing: the Haitian, well, it don't got nothing to do with them being Haitian, but I mean he was Haitian. And the grandma, when she was speaking that Creole and stuff the first time in the beginning, when Pep had said, how do you speak Creole, and he said he was Haitian and she was Jamaican, I believe that she was saying, well, who is this girl this week that you bringing? And I don't speak Haitian Creole at all. I speak Spanish and I know a little Patois, but I don't know Creole. But I felt like the grandma, she knew that when Salt was coming around that house the first time, that he had a lot of women through there. And I think, and of course, the boyfriend banked on Salt not speaking Haitian Creole and not picking up on it. But I think that grandma was saying, well, who is this woman that's in here today? Because yesterday you had a girl over here that was here real late and she left out. So what is Salt doing here? Because you might have somebody else come along. She may not know that she's here. And I think that grandma knew how he was, but Salt didn't. And then when we move forward all these years later, when they're in like the big mansion and Salt and Pepper like this household name, I feel like the grandma was coming out saying, does she know? Because the woman Salt was even holding the baby that he had on her. And I think the grandma even knew, and I don't know if y'all caught that Salt's boyfriend had a twin. I don't know if they was twins in real life, but I did catch that they were twins that played in the movie. Because the other twin was kind of keeping the grandma, quiet, being the overseer or the scapegoat, or like the scapegoat and whatnot, being on the lookout. And I felt like the grandma was pretty much. I feel like the grandma, when she came out the kitchen, was saying, does she know that you had a baby on her? Or does she know, like, this woman here is your baby mama, and instead, you're going to let her hold this child that you had on her? And, and they shut the grandma up, and she was in there cutting up food and everything, and I felt like it was what it was. So, yeah, I'm like, the grandma, she knew. And it is sad that Salt had to go all those years. And I feel like, and Salt, she knew too, so she not innocent. Because the girl even called her on the phone telling her to wash her sheets because they did the deed in the bed that they had the studio in and stuff like that. So Salt knew she was just being the nice little sweet girl and being in denial and whatnot. So moving along from that, and we pretty much get down to Salt and Pepper being in their later years and their early years. And one thing I want to say was that Egypt was nowhere in the movie as a child. Like, they didn't even show her having a baby with Trish. I mean, they showed them in the house and they showed him being violent with her. To me, they didn't even show the latter half. All Trish did was just pretty much yell and control her, but they did not show them beatings and stuff that she got. And I feel like that's probably why Pep had all this surgery done. Because I just can't see no other way. I mean, yeah, people have surgery because that's a personal choice, but I mean, when you look at a lot of black women in music, especially with the black ones from like the 90s and early 2000s, because back then we saw plastic surgery as something that white people did, and if we did it, we didn't talk about it. And Lil' Kim has said the reason why she had her nose and face done because a boyfriend of hers had knocked her eye socket out or had messed up her nose, and she had to keep getting it done. And I think Pep from that relationship may have been knocked out a few times and whatnot and had to get her nose reconstructed, or maybe Tretch made her feel so bad that she felt like she had to get it done as a cover up for how he made her feel. And like I said with DJ Spinderella, bullies a lot of times they have their own issues. They bully people because they can't handle nobody being better than them, having the spotlight, having the shine and whatnot. Because my thing is, when it comes to haters and narcissists and insecure people, they got issues of their own. And their issues come out loud and clear in how they treat people. So they may think they the boss with the most, or the hostess with the mostest, when they be treating people like they're dogs and whatnot. Your insecurities are screaming loud and clear, and your karma's gonna come back to bite you in the butt real quick, whether you like it or not. So they're getting their karma that they deserve, whether Spinderella sees it or not. Now, finishing up this video, I feel like with DJ Spinderella, I do feel like she should have been shown in that movie more than she was. But due to how Salt and Pepper are, she wasn't. But I personally feel like with DJ Spinderella, you're a grown woman and you know this is wrong. She did get her settlement money the first time they did her wrong. But I do know that she is owed more money. I think they owe her at least $100,000 now from the previous a couple $1,000 they owed her from that second album she did with them, and she said she didn't get all her money. I feel like DJ Spinderella, what you need to do is you either need to write a book, do your own biopic, or do your own documentary about your part in Salt and Pepper so that your soul can be cleansed and so that your soul can be free. And you need to take Salt and Pepper to court, draw up a lawsuit, make it so you get all of your money from any royalties and whatnot that you feel like you deserve, and just walk away with this with a clean mind and a clean conscience. Because a lot of times when people get screwed over in the industry, they end up getting their due just when they have the right lawyers, the right lawsuits, and the right papers, and the right people standing behind them. But I feel like DJ Spinderella, if you don't get your due just in this moment, while Salt and Pepper got the buzz and stuff right now, and you miss out on your chance, you can't sit up and cry, like you was before when you had the chance to make it right. I do feel like Salt and Pepper, it did have a good end as far as the movie is concerned, because I like the transition that they had from them singing and, going their separate ways and whatnot, and coming back to do reunions and honorary awards and things of that nature, and still being recognized as pioneers in hip hop. And I did like how the real Salt and Pepper came out in the end, which is always a good finish in a lot of biopics, especially if the artists are still alive when they make the biopics. And they came out and they was in their outfits, held each other's hands, did the truce up in the air, walked across the stage and went to the back, and that was the end of the movie. So overall, I felt like this was a really good biopic. I felt like this was a really good movie to begin with and whatnot. And I feel like Lifetime, they need to keep making biopics like this that are good. They have the Mahalia Jackson one coming up, who's known as the Queen of Gospel. I do know of Mahalia Jackson from growing up in, the Black Baptist Church, and I know her influence she had on the gospel community. She was very well known in the gospel circuit as well as the R&B circuit, and she held her own, especially when she sung at the funeral scene in The Invitation of Life. And that movie is so profound, especially when it comes to dealing with blackness and being mixed race and colorism and whatnot. And Mahalia Jackson, she took the scene in that movie when she sung Trouble of the World over that whole funeral scene. So I really can't wait to see that movie. I hope they incorporate that in the movie. So I hope you all like this review. Leave a comment in the comment section. Subscribe to my channel and have a good day.